Hey, it's Jordan with Status Coup. Breaking news as Congress returns from another vacation, this time their 4th of July recess. President Biden is trying to put out the fireworks or rallying cry for him to step down and get out of the presidential race. The president, in the face of more congressmen calling for him to drop out, has penned a letter that was just sent to Congress. It is quite delusional, quite nonsense, but is him firmly planting his foot in the sand. Let's go through some of it and separate fact versus fiction. Most of it is fiction. Fellow Democrats, now that you have returned from the July 4th recess, I want you to know that despite all the speculation in the press and elsewhere, I am firmly committed to staying in this race, to running the race to the end and beating Donald Trump. I have had extensive conversations with leadership of the party, elected officials, rank and file members, and most importantly, Democratic voters over the past 10 days or so. I have heard the concerns that people have, their good faith fears and worries about what is at stake in this election. I'm going to skip over this part because it's pretty much just platitudes, and that he hears you and he sees you and yada, yada. I could respond to this by saying clearly and unequivocally, I wouldn't be running if I did not absolutely believe I was the best person to beat Donald Trump in 2024. We had a Democratic nomination process, and the voters have spoken clearly and decisively. I received over 14 million votes, 87% of the votes cast across the entire nomination process. I have nearly 3,900 delegates, making me the presumptive nominee of our party by a wide margin. This was a process open to anyone who wanted to run. Only 3 people chose to challenge me. One fared so badly that he left the primaries to run as an independent. Another attacked me for being too old and was soundly defeated. The voters of the Democratic Party have voted. They have chosen me to be the nominee of the party. Do we now just say this process didn't matter? That the voters don't have a say? I decline to do that. I feel a deep obligation to the faith and the trust the voters of the Democratic Party have placed in me to run this year. It was their decision to make, not the press, not the pundits, not the big donors. All right, I can't read anymore. I haven't eaten yet. I'm on an empty stomach, and this is nauseating. There's so much to get to and respond to. Before I do that, just to update you, he sent out this letter, I think, before this list tripled, because I believe this list would have tripled. This is the list of congressmen on the record, not spinelessly, privately saying that he should drop out. Congressman Raul Grijalva, Congressman Mark Takano, Congressman Mike Quigley, Congressman Seth Moulton, Congresswoman Angie Craig, Congressman Gerald Nadler, who's pretty establishment and a big Biden ally, Congressman Joseph Morelli, Congressman Lloyd Doggett, and Congressman Adam Smith. So that's 9 Congress folks who have publicly, or it is leaked out about their private calls. And I believe Biden and his campaign put out this letter to stop the bleeding. Because if that list goes from 9 to, with Congress returning today, in one day, it could have went to 15 to 20. And, all these politicians have no spine, are calculating their own political interests, whether they're up, well, most of them are up for reelection. All of them are up for reelection. But if they're in safe districts, swing districts, et cetera, et cetera. But I want to get to Biden suddenly defending himself and, entrenching himself, line in the sand. I'm not dropping out because I care about the sanctity of democracy and the vote. And the Democratic Party held an open nomination process, he said, and the voters have spoken. Yeah, that Democratic nomination process was so open that the DNC declared Biden the nominee right away and basically canceled having a nominating process. That the DNC canceled debates. Literally canceled debates. And as I speak, breaking news, Biden is calling in to his best friends at Morning Joe, saying he did events in Michigan and Pennsylvania to get a sense from the electorate. Quote, I want to make sure I was right and the average voter out there wanted Joe Biden, and I'm confident they do.
The bottom line here is that we're not going anywhere. I am not going anywhere. I wouldn't be running if I didn't absolutely believe that I am the best candidate to beat Donald Trump in 2024. We had a Democratic nominating process where the voters spoke clearly. I won 14 million of those votes, et cetera. So,
but yeah, such an open process that the DNC held no debates for Marianne Williamson. At the time, RFK Jr. was in there to challenge him. Do you think if debates were held, I don't know, 6 or 7 months ago, that what you saw with President Biden and his cognitive hardware melting down on stage against Donald Trump, do you think that might have appeared 6 or 7 months ago against Marianne Williamson and RFK Jr.? And we might have been having the freak out conversation we're having now, then, when there was a lot more time, and then you could have pivoted to taking a look at Marianne Williamson, taking a look at RFK Jr. Maybe Dean Phillips would have jumped in then because he jumped in pretty late. Maybe others would have jumped in. Maybe more progressives would have jumped in. But specifically, if there were debates held, you would have probably had the loud chorus for Biden to drop out happen then. And frankly, it probably would have been a lot more powerful then versus 3 or 4 months before the election, when Biden and so many around him could have said, there's not enough time to do this. If this would have happened 6 or 7 months ago, I am 99.9% sure Biden would have been forced to drop out because the pressure campaign would have been a lot louder. And I also think Kamala Harris would have been, shall we say, a little less loyal, a little less publicly fervent in her support for Biden. But what's amazing, he's talking about democracy. They held no debates. They basically declared the primary over before it started. The media, all the articles said he has no credible or realistic challengers. Those were the words that the New York Times, that the Washington Post, that the Associated Press, no serious challengers. They dubbed Marianne Williamson not credible. RFK Jr., who's not my cup of tea, not credible. Several states canceled their primary, literally canceled it. Florida canceled the primary, didn't hold one. Enraging. At that point, Dean Phillips' campaign, but also the Marianne Williamson campaign. Also, my old boss at the Young Turks ran a vanity presidential campaign. He was pissed off. In this case, rightly so. North Carolina refused and played every dirty trick in the book to have Biden as the only one on the primary ballot, kicking Marianne Williamson off the ballot, Dean Phillips off the ballot. How's that for democracy? You got to be kidding me that the democratic process happened and the voters have spoken. The voters didn't get any options. They probably didn't even know there were other options, most voters who are not die hard into politics like you and I. They probably didn't even know Marianne Williamson or RFK Jr. was a choice. RFK Jr., who again is not my cup of tea, I can't blame him for bolting and running independent. It was completely rigged in the Democratic Party, just like it was in 2016 and 2020. But now Biden is latching on to the sanctity of the democratic process. Give me a break. Now, I'm not saying if they had a firm Democratic primary with debates where the media actually gave other candidates some coverage, gave them interviews. From what I could tell, Marianne Williamson was only able to get on, News Nation, some podcasts, wasn't really able to get on CNN, the Sunday morning shows. RFK Jr. went on all the independent podcasts, wasn't given much attention or ability to do interviews on mainstream shows. Dean Phillips did get those opportunities, but at that point, the cake was already baked and Biden was already had a commanding lead. I'm not saying if they held the primary, slam dunk, he would have lost. Incumbency is very powerful. And frankly, if they held debates, my guess is they might hold one debate. But clearly, what you saw from Biden a week ago, it wasn't much better 6 months ago. Do you think he could get through an hour and a half primary debate without a major cognitive meltdown? I don't think so. And with Biden, sticking his feet firmly in the sand, entrenching himself. Now, he is basically saying, I double dog dare you. Because if you go public now against me, I'm going to make your life a living hell if reelected, which at this point, I don't think is possible. He is telling Democrats, you go after me, good luck getting reassigned to your committees. You're getting moved back to the backbenches of committees. Good luck fundraising. The donors will know who was loyal to me, who wasn't. He's also sending messages to the donors. Dare, because several donors have come out publicly against him, dare to come out against me publicly. You might not get as many goodies in tax cuts, deregulation, ambassadorships as you're used to. The problem is he's still 81 and he's still got clear cognitive issues. And he's going to do a press conference coming up this week. He says he's doing more events coming up. Do we really think there's not going to be more issues cognitively? Do we really think there's not going to be more freezes? Do we really think there's not going to be more losing your train of thought and not being able to get it back? And when that happens, do we not think the calls are going to become even louder? And all of this totally gives Donald Trump a free pass, where the attention is not on Donald Trump. The attention is not on Project 2025, which is basically trying to take us back to the 1950s. It's a right-wing fever dream that Trump is claiming he has nothing to do with, although his aides and allies wrote it. And it basically wants to gut the civil bureaucracy, replace civil servants and all agencies with his loyalists, basically do away with immigration, deregulation on steroids. It's very dangerous. This is not an endorsement of Biden, but Trump is dangerous. Let's not minimize the threat of Trump. But as of now, Biden is buckling in, firmly entrenching himself and refusing to drop out. We'll see. But as of now, this is not good for democracy, because I don't think at this point Joe Biden could win.